Hey everyone, welcome back. You know we love digging into the big issues facing our world, and today, well, it's all thanks to you.
That's right. We got so many messages about this recent Financial Times article, the one focusing on India's economy.
And a really tragic story that kind of kick-started the whole thing. But it gets to the heart of a much bigger question. Can India really become an economic superpower if half its population doesn't feel safe enough to even fully participate?
That's what we're going to unpack today.
Exactly. So picture this. India striving to become this economic powerhouse, right? But then you have this heartbreaking story about a young woman, a trainee doctor they called Abhaya. The name means fearless, which is so tragically ironic given what happened.
It's a tough one to read about.
Absolutely. So she was working at this public hospital in Kolkata, a grueling 36-hour shift. Can you imagine? And the article really drives home how tough the conditions were there.
Yeah, they mentioned doctors and patients, men and women, having to share restrooms.
Just a lack of even the most basic facilities. It really paints a bleak picture. So after this exhausting shift, Abhaya tries to find a place to rest, ends up sleeping in a seminar room at the hospital because there were no other options. And tragically, she's found murdered the next morning. The details are horrific, and we won't go into them here, but it was clear she had also been sexually assaulted.
And that's what sparked those huge protests, right?
Exactly. The article talked about these powerful slogans: stop rape, we want justice.
But the one that really stuck with me was, staying silent when the fire is raging is siding with the ones who lit it.
Wow. People are rightfully angry, and it's gone way beyond just this one case. As awful as Alpaya's story is, it's become symbolic of a much bigger issue in India, this deep-seated problem of women's safety or lack thereof, and how it's holding the entire country back.
Because if women don't feel safe enough to even leave their homes, how can they be expected to work to contribute to the economy?
And that's the real crux of it. This isn't just about social justice, though that's obviously important. It's about the cold, hard economics of the situation, especially when you look at the ambitious goals Prime Minister Modi has laid out for India.
Right. He wants India to be a $30 trillion economy by 2047, India's centenary. It's a massive goal, to say the least.
Massive. But here's the thing. Right now, India is only utilizing about a third of its potential female workforce. So imagine all that talent, all that potential just going untapped.
The IMF even weighed in on this. The article mentioned Geeta Gopinath, the deputy managing director, who basically said that women's safety is non-negotiable if you want them to participate in the economy.
Makes sense, right?
Yeah.
How can anyone be productive when they're living with that constant fear, that lack of security?
And it's not just about feelings, it has a real impact.
Oh, absolutely. And we'll get into the numbers in a bit because they are mind-blowing. But first, I think it's important to acknowledge that this isn't just an India problem. This is a global issue, the way women's safety, or the lack of it, can impact economic growth.
100%. We've seen it play out in other countries.
Exactly. And that's what we're going to dig into next, how some countries have managed to make strides, while others, like India, seem to be lagging behind despite their economic ambitions. It's almost like a catch-22, isn't it?
Yeah.
They want to grow their economy, but the very things holding them back are so deeply ingrained.
It is. And the article kind of highlighted this weird paradox where women are contributing a ton to India's economy, even if it doesn't show up in the official numbers.
You're talking about unpaid labor, right?
Exactly. All that work at home, in family businesses, agriculture, it's the backbone of so much, but it's invisible to traditional economic measures.
Right. It doesn't show up as GDP, but as the engine keeping everything else running.
And it's not just the household stuff, though that's huge, it's also the caregiving role. Women are still largely seen as the primary caregivers, and when you factor in the lack of affordable childcare in India,
It traps them, doesn't it?
in a cycle of unpaid labor. They want to work, maybe, but they're stuck.
It's a global issue, really, balancing career and family. But the article really honed in on how this impacts employers' perceptions in India specifically.
Oh, absolutely. It feeds into this vicious cycle. Employers think, well, women aren't as committed to their jobs because of family, which is a huge generalization, but it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy
So they
because
don't hire them or promote them equally.
exactly. And then it reinforces the stereotype that women are less reliable, less ambitious, which just isn't true.
It's so frustrating. And the article actually mentioned another country, Bangladesh, as a counterpoint. I found that interesting.
It is a good comparison because in Bangladesh, you have women participating more in the workforce than in India, even though it's a lower income country overall.
So development doesn't automatically equal progress on this issue.
No, not at all. And the article really highlights this because in India, you have these patriarchal norms, safety concerns. It all mixes together to create this huge barrier.
So where do you even begin to untangle that?
Yeah.
The article mentions some government initiatives, but
There have been efforts, definitely. They talked about cooking gas subsidies, for example.
to help women who are spending hours cooking over fires.
Yeah, which on the surface seems like a great idea. But,
I feel like there's always a but with these things.
well, some economists argue that this kind of policy, while well-intentioned, can actually reinforce the idea that women should stay home.
You're solving the symptom, not the cause.
Exactly. The real issue is the lack of support for women who want to work outside the home. And a big part of that is the legal landscape, which, frankly, it's pretty shocking.
The article mentioned over 50 laws.
Limiting women's employment. And they're often framed as being in women's best interests, of course.
Right. Protecting them.
Exactly. Like restricting women from hazardous industries, even if the jobs are perfectly safe, or limiting night work for women.
It's like, we want you to contribute, but only in these very specific ways.
It's so limiting, and it completely undermines the idea of genuine equality and choice.
So it feels like we're talking about deeply rooted cultural stuff here. Is there even a way to change that?
It's tough, no doubt. But the article did offer some glimmers of hope, especially when they looked at specific regions within India, like South India, for example.
Oh, interesting. What's different there?
Well, they've made some real progress in terms of female workforce participation, and it seems to be a combination of factors.
Like what? Give me the rundown.
Well, they've invested a lot in female education, for one, and healthcare. Even things like making transportation safer. Plus, they've been proactive about setting up hostels for female workers who've had to move from rural areas for jobs.
So it's about more than just getting women into jobs. It's about making sure they have the support they need to actually succeed.
Exactly. They're addressing those real-life barriers. And it's not all government-driven either. The article talked about companies like Tata Group and Hindustan Unilever that are really stepping up, trying to make their workplaces more female-friendly.
Which just makes sense. More diverse perspectives, better solutions, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. And then there's this whole other idea the article brought up, which I thought was fascinating. Investing in the care sector.
Okay, now you've got my attention. Tell me more.
So think about it. If you create more jobs in things like childcare, elder care,
You're opening up opportunities for women who are already working in those fields, often for very little pay.
exactly, it gives them more stability, more options. But not only that, it also frees up other women who might want to pursue different careers. Because now they have access to affordable, reliable care for their families.
It's like a win-win situation. You're tackling that lack of support that keeps so many women trapped, and you're creating new opportunities across the board.
You empower women, you empower families, you empower the whole country. It's that ripple effect.
It's powerful. But I keep coming back to that word, complex. Because even with the best policies, the most supportive companies, there's still a long way to go in changing those deep-seated attitudes.
Absolutely, and it's something we all have to be aware of, even those of us outside of India. We have to keep talking about these issues, keep challenging those biases wherever we see them.
Because in the end, this isn't just about India's economy, right? It's about creating a world where everyone, regardless of gender, has the opportunity to reach their full potential. And that's something worth striving for, no matter where you live in the world. So to all of you listening, we want to hear from you. What are your thoughts on this complex issue? Hit us up on social media, send us an email, join the conversation. And until next time, keep asking those tough questions. And as always, keep diving deeper.